Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. As you know, this is our first CBD meeting. I think it's fantastic that you're here. I know some of you are here to get the points, but I think a lot of reasons are also to actually gain more information, and that's seeing what this is all about. My name's Alan Brown. I'm the Senior Building Consultant. I'll introduce the rest of our team. I think you all know Phil Sim, who's our Managing Director, Mark Badger, General Manager, and Tom Tesoro, who's now our National Marketing Manager. As I said, that it's really nice to see you here. It's good that builders still want to learn, and often it's not so much learning but relearning things that we might have forgotten in time. What I'll do now, I'll just get Phil Sim to open the meeting, and then we'll have our speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Okay. I had this as gentlemen, but I see there's some ladies here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you and thank you for your attendance. Tonight is not about ABS patting itself on its back. It's about giving and helping you, the builder. Tonight is a first, heading in another direction to assist you, the builder. As you know, we have homeowners warranty. We're now moving on, and we are now, as you'll see tonight, there'll be a pamphlet given to you. We are now a one-stop shop for all your insurances. The boys will explain this on the way through. In forming ABS, it was always my intention to help builders. As you know, we have the best homeowners service in Australia. Now having members throughout all states, including Tasmania, NT, Queensland not included obviously, as our government run. You'll be given tonight a one-page brochure showing you we are now a one-stop shop for all insurances, which you'll end up with this here. Also, it tells you of the other services we provide to you builders. Being when you get into trouble with a client, you're chasing the final payment, you will probably get problems. Where do you go? To the lawyer. Phone us first. Come and see us. We've got the experience in-house, and no one else is offering this to you. We're here to help you in the time of need, and you no longer have to run to a lawyer. We now have a very large and strong base of builders, so use our network. Being, does somebody else have this problem? Whatever. We've got the builders, apart from our experience, a large network. If you're looking for labour, we can put it out amongst the builders that belong to us to help you. And if it's a recommendation from us, whether it be a subcontractor or whatever, you know that it's been checked out by us. So what I want you to do is at the end of the night, I'd like you to please speak to Mark, Alan and Tom, and with any ideas or suggestions you may have on how or if where we can improve what we're doing. We're only too willing to learn, and please don't leave at the end of the night, because we've got the new diaries for next year here to present to you, and also it comes with a pen. So that's all I want to say. We hope, well, tonight will be very informative, and all our meetings will be the same. There will be no products at any time promoted by ABS. It's all builders' knowledge and for you, the builder. So I'll now pass you back to Alan. Thanks very much.
All right, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Les Wrigley. Les is the manager of the Building Investigations Branch, Home Building Service. I think that Les found out about this sometime this morning because Steve Griffin, unfortunately, the acting general manager, couldn't attend. So fortunately, Les has stepped in the breach for us, and I think it'll be as interesting and possibly more because of Les's background in the investigation branch. Just a little bit of background about Les. He was responsible for the enforcement of the Home Building Act 1989 throughout the state. He's 30 years of experience investigating breaches of legislation, including the Home Building Act, Fair Trading Act, Motor Dealers Act and Crimes Act. Some of the major cases he's been involved with include prosecution action in the local court, injunctive action in the Supreme Court of New South Wales. One of the major cases he was involved with, and perhaps he'll just talk briefly about it when he comes up, involved the activities of a Michael Knight, a New Zealand national, who traded to the detriment of consumers around Australia through 64 companies. So I'll be interested to hear a little bit more about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please warmly welcome Les Wrigley. Thank you.
So, my background being in investigations, some of the issues that will come up today I'll have a knowledge of, but I don't hold myself out to be an expert in everything that we talk about this afternoon. If there are questions that you put to me that I'm unable to answer, then I'm more than happy to take those on notice and come back perhaps through Alan and come up with the response to the questions that you may raise this afternoon. But I'm sure, I think in a general sense, I'm sure we'll be able to cover and I can satisfy the questions that you might have dealing with the home building legislation. So perhaps to start, as the screen says, what do we do? Why do we exist? And I think that's fairly self-evident. We exist to try and achieve a couple of things, and one of those obviously is the providing a resource for consumers who have difficulties in terms of building contracts that they may enter into, but similarly from an industry perspective, to try and achieve a level playing field, to try and address those people that are in your industry that perhaps shouldn't be in the industry, whether they be licensed or unlicensed. There are those people that clearly we feel are a detriment to the consumers generally, but also provide a bad name for you people that do an honest day's work, get out there and do the right thing by the consumer, look after your customers, provide them with quality work, and that shouldn't be eroded by people who either are unlicensed, unqualified, or who really are not in the industry for the long term and basically see their role as getting in, not being around for too long, making some money, and then getting out. So that essentially just sets up in general terms what we are about, and we do that through a team of investigators, 21 investigators at the moment, who look after the entire state. They are the people that I manage at the moment, and we do that compliance role, obviously in relation to complaints that we receive, but also in relation to programs that we establish where we simply will go around the state, identify areas where perhaps there's high rates of building going on, and we will simply go on site and ask some questions, particularly in relation to licences, and we then take action in the event that we find people are either doing work without a licence or who are doing work outside the authority of a licence. Again, just a general comment there about the licensing situation, who we licence, the entities that we give licences to, and 165 licences. That's probably closer to about 170,000 at the moment in terms of the licences that we have. General building work, swimming pools, kit homes and structural landscaping. Just a list there of the trade work that we license. A couple of things there on that list in terms of the electrical wiring issues. We've had responsibility for the electrical wiring issues now for some time from a safety perspective, and we are currently working on really upping the involvement that we have in terms of electrical wiring work and the relevant certificates and certification that needs to be done and submitted in terms of electrical wiring work that's being carried out. We're working closely with the energy authorities in that regard. I think we have a meeting tomorrow just to settle the documentation there, so there's a little bit happening in terms of the electrical wiring work. The gas is up there, I think, yes. That's something new to us. and we're just doing the scoping now to find out what's been happening with gas in the past, and what we need to do to put in place some compliance functions from a safety perspective as well. Next time. Again, I think you'll probably be aware of those. They're the entities that we can hold licences. Individual, partnership and a corporation. Different responsibilities relying in each of those categories. We need to address each of those categories differently in the sense of bringing enforcement action against those entities in the event that there are breaches of legislation, breaches of the Home Building Act particularly. And probably not much that I need to say on that other than the ID question is changing, or has changed in fact, and what we're asking from individuals at this stage is that when they make application for a licence, that they provide some proof of their identity, that they in fact physically present themselves at the office, provide the documentation, so that we can be comfortable that we're issuing the licences, at least as best we can, that we're issuing the licences to the people who present themselves and say they are whatever name they choose, well, their own name. They're just the documents, similarly to opening accounts and sort of things. We've identified some documents there, and we're saying that in order for an individual to be granted a licence, they have to produce themselves physically at the office and comply with the requirements to identify themselves as the person who they say they are. Slight change to the renewal process. In the event that you neglect or omit to, or a licensee omits to furnish the renewals will go out somewhere between 8 and 6 weeks prior to the licence falling due. In the event that, for whatever reason, the renewal's not submitted in time, that's the only document that you'll receive, the licensee will receive. Previously, the practice was to provide some follow-up information or some follow-up advice to say that you haven't lodged your renewal, you need to do that, and the process would go once the renewal is received. The process now will be one notification. In the event that the renewal is not renewed on time, then I think there's a fee, and I don't know what that fee is, but there is a late fee there involved in renewing the licence. Contracts. When's the contract required? If you're entering into a contract to do residential building work for a contract price that's in excess of $1,000, the legislation requires that you have in place a written contract. The legislation is not prescriptive in the sense that it says the contract must be in a particular form or must have a whole raft of information in it. But it does say that however you draft your contracts, whichever contract that you might choose to use, there are certain things that need to go into that document. And it will tell you the sorts of things there that has to go in there. So you're free to, in terms of the conditions that you might want to include in your contract. And I say that on the basis that the conditions that you have in your contract we need to be careful that they're not unconscionable terms in the contract. In other words, that the contracts are fair and can stand or withstand the test of it being an unconscionable contract, which is a term used in the fair trading legislation basically to define clauses in contracts that unfairly disadvantage the consumer. So it's not something I think that you guys would come across very often in terms of your contracts, but it's just something that you need to bear in mind in terms of it being a fair contract, so it stands the test of an unconscionable contract in terms of the fair trading legislation. Okay, again, the advertising provisions, basically saying we want licensees to describe and identify themselves to a sufficient degree in their advertising. The licence is the obvious document, or the licence number is the obvious reference number that we are looking for in terms of being able to identify and satisfy ourselves that licensed people are advertising. We held probably 18 months ago now, we went through many thousands of newspaper advertisements looking for those advertisements that potentially identified a residential building or people offering to do residential building work, and we looked at whether there were licence numbers contained. We were checking licence numbers against those that were put in the advertisements, and we were dealing with newspaper publishers to the extent that we were putting them on notice to say if there are advertisements which obviously are promoting residential building work, then we were seeking their cooperation to only run those advertisements that contained, that contained licence numbers. Now, one of the problems, of course, was that the Smarties decided that to get around that they were dreaming up any sort of series of numbers to put in their advertisements to satisfy the publishers. But we maintained a watch on those advertisements, and we were able to pick up people who were using licences which they weren't entitled to use, and we took action against those people. CPD at the moment, as you're aware, applies to builders and swimming pool builders. The whole concept of CPD at the moment is under review to determine where it should go, how it should work, whether it needs to be expanded to other trades, how it should work. So there's really not much that I can say on that because it's just simply under review at the moment, and I think we could perhaps, rather than me suggest here what may happen, I don't see there's much point in spending a lot of time on CPD, but if there are questions about it, I'll field those as best that I can. Home warranty insurance, I was just picking up on a point that Phil made earlier about dashing off to lawyers if and when there's a problem arises. I mean, I'd support those comments. I think that we see that where a dispute or an issue or even questions come to the point where solicitors get involved, we look at that as being a bit of a failure on our part, in the sense that we should be providing information not only to consumers who have disputes but also the industry as well. It's not about bashing the industry and making things difficult, although no doubt some of the requirements in the legislation do make it difficult for you to run your businesses, but the overall objective of trying to develop a level playing field, of trying to provide advice to both the parties that are in dispute and trying to resolve those issues without recourse to solicitors, I think is a major aim for us. Not always possible, but I think that we are developing our skills in terms of dispute resolution very well, and I think in the last 3 years the figures that we've achieved in terms of bringing about a resolution of a dispute outside of litigation, I think is encouraging for us, and hopefully it's a good sign for the industry. Just touching on the dispute resolution process, that gives you a very quick outline of what we try to achieve, and I think the paramount point in all that is the early intervention. Our experience is that where disputes are allowed to fester to the point where there's no communication between the parties to a dispute, where there are arguments and acrimony and threats and all this sort of carry on, they are not conducive to reaching a resolution to a dispute. We see the process as being an advantage to both the consumer and to the industry. I'm sure that you guys don't see yourselves as being tied up in court paying legal costs in an attempt to try and resolve your disputes. I think the way that we are approaching these things, and we've got some targets in place in terms of how we deal with complaints and when they should be dealt with, and contacts with the various parties, so that we can get to the parties very quickly and hopefully avoid the acrimony that goes with these disputes, where they tend to become very protracted. So the early intervention is an important issue. The on-site mediation, I think that allows our inspector to work with the parties to the dispute to try and resolve the matter on-site at that time, if that's possible. And our resolution rate in those situations is something like 75 to 80% of the matters getting resolved at that point, and we think that's a very good result, and it helps to stem the problem at an early stage and avoids things like solicitors and consumer claims tribunals and rectification orders, which is a tool that our inspectors can use, again, where in circumstances where the mediation process has failed and the inspector is of the view that the work that's been done is of such a poor quality that he needs to instruct the builder to do certain things within a certain period of time, and that's the rectification order process. So it basically says, look, the work you've done here, despite the fact that the dispute resolution has failed, the quality of work here is not satisfactory, and the order requires certain things to be done within a period of time. And our clear expectation is when an order like that is issued, that it will be complied with within the time frame that has been set out, which doesn't mean that if contractors come to us and say, look, you've given me a week to do this job, I can't possibly do it within a week, I need a month, and there's some evidence to support that, then I think we would be remiss in our duties to be saying, well, become very dogmatic and say, well, no, it's a week and that's the time frame you have. So we need to take on board the fact that we need to be realistic in terms of setting, allowing periods of time to cover the work that's required to be done under a rectification order. Tribunals is, I suppose, the final arbiter in one sense of the resolution of a complaint. Often what we get in the office is that consumers sometimes confuse the dispute resolution process with the compliance process, which I think is the last point that's on the screen there. We look at there being two very distinct courses of action that's available to us. The first one is to provide a service to the contractor and the consumer to bring the parties together in a dispute, to follow a procedure to try and achieve that. And if that's not possible, if the mediation is not possible at that point, then the tribunal is the place where the parties then go for a determination of the dispute. And we see the tribunal as being the final arbiter. Take your issue, go to the tribunals, you cop on the chin the decision that the tribunals make, and that's the end of the dispute resolution process. Running beside that, in some cases, and certainly not all, but running beside that process, we may also identify that there have been breaches of legislation, deposit issues, contract issues, those sorts of things arise that may have repercussions on the licensee in terms of the holding of the licence. And consumers sometimes get those two processes confused and seek to be involved themselves in the enforcement action that we say is the realm of the Commissioner. It's the Commissioner who takes proceedings against contractors who breach the legislation and obviously unlicensed people who simply by doing residential building work breach the legislation. So we're very clear in our minds that they are two very separate things. They don't go hand in hand, but certainly sometimes consumers seek to influence the dispute resolution, the compliance activity, and sometimes just lose focus of the fact that their real issue is to try and get the dispute resolved. And we often have to focus these people's minds on what it is they're trying to achieve. We find that the early intervention helps the consumer to focus on working with the builder instead of against them. We work hard to try and avoid the situation where consumers will say, well, no, bugger it, the contractor's done this, that and whatever, and I don't want him back on site. End of story. We work hard to say to these consumers, look, that's your prerogative. If you don't want contractors back on your site, that's your prerogative, and if that's your decision, so be it. But we go to some pains to point out to them that it's really not a good option. The legal processes, even in going through the tribunals, the inconvenience, the cost, and the acrimony that builds up really is often not a positive thing for the consumer to get involved in. And so we're saying to them, look, please listen to the contractors, work with the contractor. If it is at all possible, reach a solution. It may mean the builder has to give a little bit, and it may mean the consumer has to give a little bit, but if we can organise a resolution that is at least acceptable to the parties, something that both parties can live with, then we see that as being the way forward, and that's the outcome that we attempt to achieve, and we see that with, I suppose, the win-win situation, if you can call it that. It's not really a win-win. It's I suppose in one sense it's a loss a little bit on both sides. Both sides agree to move their position to some degree so that we can sign off on a document that says this is the way forward, and there's no doubt in my mind that that's the optimum way of resolving those disputes. The register is probably the main thing there. Again, you're probably aware there's nothing new about that. It's a register that provides information to consumers about their decision to deal with a contractor. The register only applies to licensed people, and it shows, amongst a lot of other things, those contractors who may have been the subject of enforcement proceedings, contractors who have failed to comply with an order of the tribunals. They're probably the major thing. Prosecutions, warning letters, so those sorts of things. So basically it attempts to give the consumer a bit of an idea as to who they should contract with, and the advice that we give to people when they look at the register and they can't find somebody on the register, then our advice to them is that they shouldn't deal with those people. They should only be dealing with those people that are on the register, because they're the people who are licensed to do the work in the various categories of licence that have been issued. The tribunals I've spoken about briefly. Basically just goes through the types of claims that can be made in the building division, and gives you an idea of the costs. I mean, if you have a look at the costs there, I mean they're not huge costs, but certainly from a consumer perspective, the costs, if solicitors become involved, the time off work, and particularly from an industry perspective, again, you don't want to be tied up in appearing before the tribunals and getting involved in complex legal arguments about contracts and what they mean, and all that takes you away from your primary function of being out doing your work. So that's the end of the little presentation. The other thing that I just might mention to you is that last Wednesday the government announced a further inquiry into the Home Building Service. This, by my count, is about the 7th I think we've had in about 3 years. If you've not seen anything on it yet, and I don't think anything has gone public about it yet, but I think if not today or tomorrow, certainly this week, there will be some advertisements in the press announcing the fact that there will be this inquiry, and it will invite submissions from everybody involved in the industry. Anybody that has an interest in the industry can make submissions, and those will be considered. I think there's a couple of days of public hearings in November, and I think the committee has to report in February, by the end of February next year, on its findings in relation to pretty much the whole raft of things that we do, whether that be in terms of insurance, in terms of licensing, the enforcement work that we do. It's an across-the-board thing, and the General Manager and the Commissioner will no doubt be required to respond to the submissions that are received from the public, and in fact we're doing some work on that at the moment in terms of what we have achieved in the last 3 years, and no doubt we'll have to respond to the submissions, and I suspect that some of those will be quite negative, but we'll need to address those once the submissions have closed, and make our own submissions in response. So that was pretty much all that I wanted to go through. Thank you, Alan. But as I say, I'm quite happy to go from here wherever you like. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, we'll take some questions from the floor. I was just going to ask, whilst we're here, one of the things I often hear is from builders is that there's all these shonky builders around and nothing ever seems to happen to them. Well, I know that's not the case, but I'd be interested if you give us some examples of how they've been targeted lately, and what success rates you might be having.
Yeah, it is a good point, and I know some 3 years ago when we first started doing our compliance programs, that a lot of builders were saying to us, were quite surprised that had licences for 20, 30 years and had never been asked to produce a licence. And to a large degree we were very well, and still are, very well received when we go on site unannounced, and we ask for the production of licences. And not only is it a question of production of licences, but we also find that people we speak to say, everybody here is licensed, go and have a look down the road there, people working down there who we know are not licensed. And we follow up on all of those leads. We may not be able to do it on that day, but I can say to you that we are very keen to identify and to prosecute those people who are working in the residential building industry without licences. Of recent times, we've just finished our 7th program, which was down on the southern regions, the Victorian border, which was an unlicensed program. We contacted 300 or 400 people, 300 and something people, individuals. Out of that came, I think about 46 or 47 penalty notices were issued. We're following up on a number more. And so we are having an impact on what's happening on site. Can we do more? Yes, although I think that the 7 programs that we have run in the last financial year, I think really strained us to the point that it's not just the week or the 2 weeks that we might spend going around sites, but it's the follow-up work that has to be done, and we have to do that in addition to the response to complaints that we receive and the files and the enforcement action that we have to take against people who we are already aware of. So the programs are in addition to simply responding to complaints, and there is a huge workload there. But I do think that we are having an effect. You may have seen from time to time Minister Beamer goes public and exposes the people who we have taken action against. We publish the results of particularly the prosecution action that we take, and certainly in relation to those Supreme Court matters where we basically are going looking for orders from the court to stop those recalcitrant people, in other words, the people that we have issued penalty notices to, the people who we have prosecuted and who continue to carry out residential building work despite that action. The only option that we then have is to take the matter to the Supreme Court. We obtain orders from the court, and then it starts to get a little bit serious, because if these people continue to do residential building work in defiance of those orders, then they can face jail. So it does get a little bit serious, and we start to get these people's attention once we move to seek orders in the Supreme Court that they desist from doing certain things. So in terms of contacts, many thousands. In our first our first major program that we undertook, we contacted 3,000. When I say contact, we simply went on site and spoke to contractors, and we spoke to about 3,000 people. We also had a program designed to look at home warranty insurance issues. It was something fairly new to us, in the sense that it was earlier this year was the first program of its type that we had undertaken. We got a lot out of that, but it was a question of just trying to find how we run that process of getting the evidence against those people who we basically walk on site and say, well, you know, have you have a licence? Yes. Do you? How much is what's the value of the contract? Have you got home warranty insurance? Can you produce your documents? And I mean, invariably people don't have those documents on site. So there are a few things there, but we also use that home warranty insurance program partially as a compliance tool, but also to acquaint contractors with their responsibilities, to put people on notice that they're required to have that insurance, and we gave them a little package that said these are the insurers that you should do. So it's not solely a compliance project, but you know, certainly in that regard we were looking at an education role as well.
I was just going to ask as well, there seems to be a bit of misunderstanding about contractors or builders doing work for owner builders. Is it right that they still are required to have homeowners warranty even if they're doing a job for an owner builder?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have no doubt at all that the owner builder has a responsibility to ensure that he has home warranty insurance for a major reason, that if the owner builder comes to sell the home within, I think it's 6 years, that person, the owner builder, is required to pass on the benefit of that home warranty insurance to the incoming purchaser, and the owner builder exposes him or herself to action by prosecution action by our office if they fail to do that. So what we're saying is to the industry, as you bring the trades in to do specific work, that the contracts, of course, where they're caught by the requirements of the legislation, very definitely home warranty insurance has to be in place, not just for the benefit of the owner-builder at the time, but also to satisfy his requirements should he sell.
I mean, a homeowner's warranty, say an owner-builder takes in home warranty insurance as an owner-builder,
Right.
and pays for on a $150,000 project, pays X amount, then expects each of the trades to come on site to also have homeowner's warranty
Right.
in place for the work they undertake on your house. So is that not doubling up on homeowner's warranty?
No.
No, sorry, look, if I could just clarify that the owner-builder doesn't have to take out homeowner's warranty unless they sell within 6 years, right? But
yes, no, I see. Yes,
can
sorry.
confirm
Yes,
this,
yeah,
but as a contractor working for an owner-builder, works over $12,000,
Yeah.
you have to provide it. But the owner-builder doesn't have to, only if they sell.
Yes, I was just confused on that point you talked about. Yeah, it's clearly, as the owner builder, there's as an owner builder, there's no responsibility on you to arrange home warranty insurance. It starts when the contractors come in and do the work, and the way that it once you've had all the different trades come in and do their work, and those that are required to give you the home warranty insurance give you that, when you come to sell, basically you're going back to the insurer and you're saying, here are my certificates for this and this and this, and the insurer then will give you a certificate which covers all of that work, and you hand that on to the purchaser when you sell. Does that sort of clear it up? It's not a...
Owner builders are not required to get homeowners warranty until they sell for 6 years. That's fine. You don't have a problem getting out of council. The only time you have a problem getting out of council is if you haven't gone to fair trading and done the course. And come up with your owner builder's licence, okay? Owner builder's licence. Now, the setup is if you sell within that 6 year period, you come to someone like us, and then an inspection is done on the house as it is finished. Whether it's 1 year old, 2 years old, 5 years old. An inspection is done, and you'll be asked by myself or Alan, we're the only two in our company that do it. I want to see the engineer certificate, pre-pour. I want to see the waterproof certificate. I don't want to see it, I want a copy of it. And I want the OC, the occupation certificate. Those are the 3 certificates that I require for home warranty insurance. So it's as simple as that, and providing the report's okay. I mean to say, I haven't found one that isn't at the present time. It's that simple.
I was actually going to ask about the fair trading's warranty, like the attitude to whether a contractor, under the terms of the contract, if he hasn't been fully paid and there is a dispute going on, and it could go on for many years, right? It could be a substantial sum of money, right? The defect liability issues with regards to the owner versus, say, the subcontractor. If the work's been completed, the work hasn't been paid for under the contract, and there is a dispute going on for whatever reason, whether the money's gone amiss or whatever, right? The attitude of the fair trading on the liability on the builder for defect liability issues. It's like if you buy a car from Holden and don't pay for it, you don't get a warranty.
Right.
But with housing, you know, this dispute could go on for 4 or 5 years in court for whatever period of time.
Yeah.
The liability issues during that time for defect liability items that the builder obviously hasn't been paid to do the job, but is he still liable?
I think there's 2 issues there. The one that will get us involved in the first place is that it's probably fair to assume that, well, you might tell me I'm wrong, but it's probably fair to assume that if people aren't making a payment, they have some issue in dispute. There's some concern, whatever it might be. And that would be the catalyst for the matter to come to us, and the consumer would say, well, I'm not happy with the work that's been done. I haven't...
Let's call it an unscrupulous developer. It could be anyone. Let's call it an unscrupulous developer that seconds the money elsewhere, hasn't paid the builder at the end.
Okay, well, I mean that's just straight out Crimes Act offences. I mean you can't do that. I mean it would be something that we would investigate from a perspective of the developer's actions, particularly. I mean we're talking about developers now who hold licences.
We're talking multi-unit developments. I'm just
Yeah.
It's a scenario. I'm just thinking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, straight out fraudulent conduct, which I think is what you're saying. Fraudulent conduct is essentially a Crimes Act offence. We will prosecute Crimes Act offences. It's not something that we is our core business, because we say the home building legislation is our core business. But scenarios like that where you're essentially dealing with someone who is unscrupulous, who has defrauded people of their money. I mean, they are things that issue. The other side of that thing is the question of the work being completed and whether the work being done. If it's just a completion issue, and that's what you're saying, there's no issue about defective work. It's simply an issue that money has been misappropriated, and there's an impasse because the builder is saying, well, I haven't been paid, therefore I'm not going to do anything. Well, then it's not an issue we would pursue.
The various architect consultants into this whole licensing process, because the current situation, you could have an architect or engineer that's designed something, you've quoted on that same same project to the documents, you go and build to those documents. For whatever reason, there's a failure, be it a concrete slab failure, because the engineer, by his own admission, under-designed the reinforcing. The builder then has to go and rectify it. The engineer trots off and throws his hands in there and says, well, take me on a PI. You subsequently do that. In the meantime, the builder's got to fix the damn thing. The builder's got to fund it. The builder's got to fight it through a PI claim. The engineer that's been paid as a professional consultant has done the job, been paid for it, and washes his hand of it. The builder ends up with a bad name. The consultant sits in his office and does squat. Is there any move to pull that, because it's becoming a major concern? There's a lot of pretty ordinary architects and bloody ordinary structural engineers out there that we are finding that are serving up, and they're serving it up to builders, they're serving it up to clients that, through their own admission, don't understand the process. And as builders, we bear the brunt of it.
Yeah, and it's a valid point. I mean, it's something that we take on board when we're looking at those sort of issues. And there's a couple we've got looking at the moment that raises this very issue of the builder's responsibilities in that regard. The issue is clearly one of just what the contractual situations. The contractual situation is the answer to the question. If you're contracting to build a house that includes a slab, your contract. Yeah, look, the only way I can answer that is to say that you're probably aware the building professional boards is getting involved in some of the licensing issues and some of the qualification issues and disciplinary processes with those. But it doesn't. I mean, I take the point. I mean, it doesn't address your position, because you're saying, well, hey, I'm doing everything right. Although, I mean, if you're raising issues, you're saying you had some queries about that. What?
And I got the money back out of it. But he goes on and keeps practicing, and no doubt we'll do the same thing.
So my question to you would be, if you had those concerns, why would you go ahead with it? My question to you would be, if you had those concerns about the slab, if that's a real example, why would you go ahead with it?
Why would I go ahead with it?
Aren't you exposing? Yeah, I mean, I'll be suggesting you have some concern. Sorry?
I've got a project to build.
Yeah, but you've still got some concerns about what's about the plans and the engine.
The engineer has come back and said it's okay. We build it, it failed.
Yeah.
It's my problem. It's my fault.
I understand. I suppose what I'm saying is I really don't have an answer of how you can avoid that. It's the contractual situation that sets up your responsibilities, and it's the contract that the people are going to sue or take action against you for that.
Now, Les mentioned before there's an inquiry about to happen. Now, what I suggest, anyone with your concerns, and we know what you're talking about, and with your concerns as well, put it through us, because we've been invited already. I was at Parliament yesterday. with one of the members that's going to be actually running this inquiry. So we've been invited to put a submission in on behalf of ABS representing you, our builders. So we need to hear back from that, and rather than bog Les down at the present time, with due respect, put it back, put it on paper, put it to us, and that will come in with our submission. Okay? So any of you that's got any problems at all, I was trying to leave this to the end, but so we can just move on. We are actually involved in this here now. So if you've got anything that's troubled you, bugged you, whatever, I need to hear about it, okay? But please not right now so we can move on. Is that okay?
Where does a nominated contractor sit in the homeowner's warranty scheme?
The nominated contractor. Don't understand the question.
Okay, on a contract we have a nominated contractor signed by the architect or the client.
So that's the head contractor, you're saying?
Yes.
This is the principal contractor?
Correct?
Yep, okay.
We get nominated a contractor, say Joe Blow Air Conditioning.
Yep.
Who covers his homeowner's warranty?
The head contractor is responsible for covering the work that he's contracted to do. So the answer to the question is, if you're signing up a $1 million contract to do to build a series of units or whatever, then the head contractor is responsible for providing the home warranty insurance, and that's the insurance. That's the person who contracts with the consumer to do the work.
So what you're saying is, if that nominated contractor I'm not comfortable with, I shouldn't sign the contract? Or can I ask them to cover their own homeowner's warranty for that section of the work?
The responsibility is always with the principal contractor. He's the person who signs the contract, and we would say that's where the responsibility lies. What other arrangements might be made, if you had those concerns and you wanted to enter into some form of contract with somebody as being the head contractor, want to have some other arrangements with your subbies, then that's fine. But we're saying you as the principal contractor are responsible for the home warranty insurance, and that's across the board.
So we spend so much energy and so much money chasing the bad builders and hounding them out of the industry, but we don't have a reward system for the guys that are good at it. You have a car insurance, you have home content insurance, you have this. After a certain period of time, you either get a 20% discount, a 40% discount, or a 60% discount. There doesn't seem to be any incentive in any way, shape or form to be good. You understand what I'm saying? There must be a way to integrate a system, whether it be through these guys or another homeowner's warranty, where after 10 years without having a claim, there must be a way for you to be able to get a discount or something else, or a star system or something like that, that would then make the guys who go out there and do a great job and never have callbacks and that rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Yep. Can I say this to you? I mean, as you're aware, the insurance now is all privatised. What we are doing is working with the industry to try and do something like that, to try and improve the product. How that will eventuate, I don't know, but I'm confident that there'll be things happen well, I won't put a time on it because I don't know, but there's certainly been discussion about how to improve that conduct, how to improve the insurance product so that there's some recognition of issues similar to that. Other than, that's really as much as I can say because it's very early days, but suffice for me to say to you that it is something that we're conscious of in terms of the risk that's involved, and now having a look back and seeing where we've come from and how this insurance scheme has worked. Perhaps some might say hasn't worked, but how we can progress that. We see it as the starting point, this home warranty insurance being a bit of a starting point. We needed to get started somewhere. This is how it's developed, but there are discussions going on about that we're having with the industry of how to improve that product. I can't say much. I hope that helps a little bit, but that's as much as I can say. But the point you make is quite right, is valid.
When it comes to dispute between the contractor and the builder and the developer about payments and things, and it goes to court, the first thing the solicitors tell you is if you've taken out a Department of Fair Trading contract, they're not worth anything. They're too broad, yeah.
Right.
And it just means nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said earlier on, I mean, the contract is just a document that's been put together and made available for the industry. I think you should, my advice to people is to have those contracts vetted by your own solicitors and work out the contract and design the contract within the limitations of the legislation, but certainly to have the contract contoured to suit your own needs. I think, again, the point's well made, but my only advice can be there that you really need to spend the money to set yourselves up properly with a contract that suits what you're doing, how you're doing it, and the protections that you want to build into that contract. That's the only answer I can give you. It's a question of developing the contract yourself. All we're saying is this is available. If you want to use it, use it. It's a good starting point, but we don't say that this is the only way that you can do your that you can contract to do the work that you want to do.
Well, they all seem nice, all these contracts. When everyone starts off at the beginning of the job and everyone's friends.
Yeah,
when the money stops.
Exactly.
And the solicitors start to step in.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that make the money.
Exactly. And that's the message that we constantly give people. You know, talk to the builder, talk to the contractor. The simplest way to resolve all this, even if you're going to, you know, you're not going to get 100% of what you've got. Our strong advice is at least seriously consider what's being put to you. Once the dialogue breaks down, that's when the dollars start mounting up and the solicitors get involved, and it really is a lot. We just see that as a straight out loss for us because we've not been able to bring the parties together. We try very hard to do that. We certainly try to convince the consumers that it's just they're just leading themselves into a whole lot of expense and worry, and I see them every day. Well, I say every day, but I mean I see them the people coming in, and it's destroyed people's lives simply because, in my view, they wouldn't accept the advice to accept the compromise to some degree on the basis that it can all be finished within a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and the whole process dominates their lives. They're obsessed by simply then not just resolving the dispute, but also we've got to get the builder, irrespective. That becomes the dominant thing. We want the builder to lose a licence. We want action taken. We want big fines. We want prosecutions. We want the whole lot. And once it gets to that point, irrespective of how much time we can spend with these people to say, no, that's not what you want. What you want is to get your house fixed. You want the defective work fixed. That's what you want. But if it gets too far down the track, we've lost that opportunity. And that's why early intervention is important. We need to really explain to these people the best way of resolving their dispute.
Les, one final question from the floor from Michael.
Why is it always the builder's problem? Everything that seems to happen is always the builder's problem.
Why does it always seem to be the builder's problem?
I mean, you generally get on jobs where an external architect, external consultants, whether they're engineers, whoever, maybe an interior designer, you get cost blowout, changes in design, calling for variations, clients don't want to pay them, and at the end of the day, architect steps back, everyone steps back, leaves the builder sitting in the firing line for everything that happens. At the end of the day, we get caught carrying the can. You made a comment before about, if the slab wasn't ready or you didn't think the slab was designed correctly, shouldn't pour it. We're not engineers, right? We don't get paid to actually engineer, in most cases, not to engineer a project, right? But the thing is that if you're going to put faith in the system, you've got to back the engineer. If the engineer says it's acceptable, he's got qualifications, engineer certificates, he's got all sorts of bits and pieces, and here's this poor bloke down here copping it because the engineer's just going to walk away.
The builder is basically in the firing line because it's the builder that signs the contract to do certain things. And so at law, that's the starting point is, where's the contract? What does it say? what does the contract require the builder to do? What does the legislation require the builder to do? So they're the things that identify or at least put the builder up front in terms of their responsibilities.
Les, I've got a couple of generic questions for you.
Yep.
Obviously, we get calls at our place regarding licensing and the time frame it takes to get licence either upgraded from an individual licence to a corporate licence or just applying to have your licence renewed. Right. The time it's actually taken to get through the Office Fair Trading is enormous sometimes. We've seen it from anything from 6 weeks to 6 months. Can you just give us a comment in terms of the problems you have in terms of processing them, and that they may explain as to why it takes a long time?
All right. Are we talking sort of current times now?
Current times now.
Okay, all right. Certainly there were delays, and I've got to admit that there were delays, and the delays were certainly unacceptable in processing licence applications and have been for some time. Of recent times, one of the inquiries that we had, and I think this is about the third inquiry into how we do our licensing and process our licensing work. The current inquiry is being undertaken by I forgot her name, Moss, Irene Moss, Irene Moss, of the former ICAC Commissioner. She's undertaking a review of how we do our licensing at the moment. Certainly the aim is that we aim to turn around those licences within 30 days. Now, if that's not the experience that you're putting to me, yeah, yeah, that's the aim, that's the target of that we've set ourselves. I can't give you off the top of my head at the moment how we are progressing against that aim, but that's the...
Because the question they get asked is that once it goes into the black hole,
Yes.
so to speak, they don't hear any more about it.
Yeah.
Is there a process where they can pick up the phone and someone's going to say, yes, it will take you 6 weeks,
Yeah.
or no, we are running a little bit behind time, expect 8. Because I think what happens, the builders just need the information.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take them?
Yeah.
Because they're obviously planning other contracts or planning to talk to clients and things like that, and they just don't know where they stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my understanding is 30-day turnaround, but I can perhaps come back to you with a contact if that would help.
That'd be great. If you have a
And,
contact that
yeah,
we can actually refer our builders to, it'd be great.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
okay.
next question is regarding your inspectors. As you said, you've got 20-odd inspectors. Is it like
Sorry,
random breath testing
So yeah, go on.
in the fact that these guys at some stage can expect those inspectors to be on their site for whatever reason?
Yes, yeah. Just again to distinguish between the two, the inspectors are the technical guys who do the dispute resolution. The investigators are the people who will turn up unannounced on a building site
Okay,
and
that's your
ask for.
after.
So it's the inspector. Sometimes it's a combination of both. When we run our programs, we just throw as many resources as we can into a particular area, and it may be a combination of inspectors and investigators. But I can certainly tell you that probably 3 days out of 5 we would have somebody out in the field, or we would have a team out in the field just doing that, just driving around. Some of it's based on intelligence that we have in terms of there's a building works going on wherever, and the guys will just turn up. So yes, it's very much so, yes.
And in terms of complaints to your office about builders, here's an idea. What type of volume of complaints would you have to handle in a year regarding builders?
Yeah, we get it somewhere around about 6,000 complaints a year.
Wow.
When I say we, the process is that complaints would normally come in through the various fair trading centres. I think there are about 20 odd around the state. People have a problem, they come into the office, they either have a letter that they want to present to us, or there's a form that they complete, and the fair trading centre people we fund, when I say we, the Home Building Service, funds some of the positions that are in the fair trading centres, and we train those people as best we can to be our frontline people in the dispute resolution process, so that what you should expect, if you have a complaint, and if a consumer comes in and has a complaint against someone who has a licence, what you should see happen is that our fair trading centre people will make a phone call and simply say, Mrs. So-and-so has come in, she's got a problem with this, what's your view? what do you know about it? Can you, is there a way forward? Can we fix this on the strength of a phone call? And that's a very successful way, because what we're finding there is that when they get onto somebody, particularly in the bigger building companies, the people that really, the decision makers, perhaps don't always know what's happened, and it's a phone call and we get the response, look, not a problem, we'll have someone out there this afternoon, or I'll ring Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, I'll ring them this afternoon and we'll sort the problem out. And probably a third of our matters simply get resolved on the strength of a phone call. They're escalated, not to be too long-winded, but they're escalated to the point where if that doesn't work, they come to the Home Building Service. We look at appointing inspectors to go out and conduct site inspections and go through the process of the mediation.
All right, if finally, at the start we mentioned you had a builder you were going to talk about, had many faces, 64 different companies.
Oh,
so if you could just finish up with that for everyone as an example.
Yeah, in fact, he wasn't a builder. He was. This is my fair trading days. This is a fellow, a New Zealand national who went by the name of Michael Knight, and a whole raft of other names. Generated 64 odd companies, all of which basically dudded people around the state. Fair trading centres around the country were unable to get him before the courts and to stop the conduct that he was doing. And the important point of, and perhaps what I should say is, in terms of the disciplinary action, the prosecution action that we take, that of itself is not an outcome as far as we're concerned. You prosecute people, and if that's all that happens, then it really hasn't been effective at all. What we're about in terms of our disciplinary process and prosecution actions and Supreme Court restraining orders is to change conduct. That's really what we're all about. We are more than happy to take that action if the builder or anybody else in trade or commerce reacts to that action that we've taken by saying, okay, well, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm going to change and I'm going to become Honest John, and the problem's fixed. Maybe a little bit of Fantasyland stuff, but that's what we would like to see. But coming back to Michael, the scams were just numerous over a number of years. He was promoting some linen that he sold under the name of Sheridan. The sheets were sort of reduced from, the bed linen was reduced from so many hundreds of dollars to, I think, $50, and you got 3 sets of bed linen. And when we inquired into it, they were Taiwanese or something. But he promoted them as Sheridan and used the Sheridan price as being the base price, and basically caught thousands and thousands of people. When we asked him about about the sheets, he was quite put out that we'd suggested that they weren't Sheridan sheets at all, but and he put to us that the sheets were called Sheridan for no other reason than that was the name of his daughter. And so you get these things that are just straight out cons, where people set themselves. In fact, he showed me one day. He had a book when we did a record of interview with him, and I said, Michael, he kept referring to this book. Michael, what's this book? As he turned the pages over, and he said, oh mate, you're not getting that. I said, well, just show me. He said, no mate, you're not getting your hands on that. And he called it his book of scams, and basically he had all of his next scams were all in the pages of this book. The end result certainly was a good one for us, and to my knowledge, that was 2001. To my knowledge, he hasn't set foot in Australia since. He's gone back to New Zealand, where Well, he ended up. The last report I got from Michael was that he was in hospital, that someone had dropped him out of a window. First floor, he went and dropped him out. So I think they caught up with him over there as well.
I'll now ask Badger to come and thank Les for us formally.
Look, on behalf of everyone, Les, I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, mate.
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And,
I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. As you know, ABS is nearly 2 years down the track now. You guys are obviously part and parcel of our organisation. and as you're probably aware, we've rattled a number of cages to be where we are now, and we're getting stronger and stronger. And as Phil preempted, we're now going to be offering a whole lot of other services to you to become virtually a one-stop shop. Currently operating, as I said, in all states now. And look, what I want to do is just read you a quick letter from one of our builders to give you an idea how it has impacted on some people. It says here, "Dear Mark, we feel it important to point out to you that our business has certainly benefited considerably by joining your organisation. Our prior insurers had restricted our trading ability considerably. Since joining ABS in September of last year, we've been able to turn around our loss for the year of around about $48,000 to a profit at the end of the year of nearly $150,000. We are very confident in our abilities to continue to generate some handsome returns for the current year and beyond. And as shown in our year-to-dates with our P&L, we are already at $160,000 profit and a 38% increase in our turnover." So that gives you an indication as to one of our builders, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the same type of benefit. And having said that, we're asking you now to tell your building friends that you now have an organisation that does support you and gives you that freedom to build again. If you have, we'd like to hear some more back from you as well. If you'd like to tell us how you're performing, please do so. We'd love to hear, similar to this, a bit of a spiel, so we can then pass on to other builders and, again, inform people as to there's an alternative out there to actually improve your business and to give you that opportunity. The other thing too I want to point out to you, and it was raised tonight about premiums. We are constantly talking to Lumleys in order to try to bring those premiums down for you. We're in the process of negotiating with them at the moment, and hopefully in the next month or so you'll find a significant drop in those premiums as well. And that's as a result of Phil and myself talking at length with the insurer to say, look, these guys are out there, we have our checks and balances in place, their risk factor is lower, so therefore they should be paying less premiums. So we are addressing that for you. All right, basically that's our presentation for tonight. I'd like to pass back to Phil now if you'd like to finish up. But again, appreciate your time coming out tonight and I hope you've got a lot out of it.
Thanks, Mark. I hope you, as Mark said, that tonight has gone some way to helping you, and with the questions that are coming from the floor, I think it was fantastic. As I said, touching on Les before, ABS is involved in this inquiry. Now here is your golden opportunity now to you put it down in writing. Don't just phone me up about it, but put it in writing, then come and see me. Now, we are being taken notice of at this inquiry. I can assure you, after being at Parliament yesterday, they are definitely listening, because ABS is different, and that's why you belong to us, because we are different. Now, never mind how the fights and scraps that I've had beforehand, but that's just part and parcel of doing something for the builders. I've got a question from the back up there before about the builders. It's always the builders. A lot of time it is the builders, but a lot of time the builder's ignorant too. Now, he doesn't have to be anymore. He's got this all open to him. Now, just finally, what I'd like to say, with the homeowner's warranty, you hear it's no good. It's this last resort. It's hopeless. Well, I'll tell you what, you don't want it to be first resort like it was. Because if it's first resort, they're not going to come to us or to you. They're going to go put the claims straight in. And boy, oh boy, these little things, defects, you're going to get paid out with the Veros and everybody else, which are doing it now, and then they come chasing you. You don't even get a chance to fix it. First resort. So what we have may not be the best system, but it's a bit like capitalism. Until another one comes along, this is the best. So what we have in place now, and as you know, it's triggered the three ways. He goes broke, disappears, or dies. That's what triggers homeowners warranty. And it applies for home owner builders as well. The same thing. And your normal profession and upstanding, being in the building, you go back and fix it. There's always niggly things. But if there's any bit of advice, get in, kill it, fix it. It's like cancer. It'll grow otherwise. Okay? So I'll leave you with that. Alan?
Thanks, Phil. Well, thank you all very much for coming. As I said at the start of it, you're here to get 4 points, but I think more so you're here to learn. You've been good interaction, which is fantastic. In closing, at the back, there's your diaries. We've also got for you a copy of the Guide to Standards and Tolerances, which was shown on the board before, and we've also got that little post-construction maintenance guide to homeowners, which is a handy little booklet to give to your client when you finish, because it points out to them what their maintenance obligations are. So again, I commend you all for coming, and thank you very much. Good night.